The race of the ancient Egyptians has been a topic of controversy from at least the 18th century among people interested in Egypt and history as a whole. Early on in the controversy, the view of race in ancient Egypt was Eurocentric in nature, but lately Afrocentric views on the topic are just as prevalent. In this video, we will analyze what race even means and how it applies to the ancient Egyptians and their civilization. Stick to the end of the video to see my conclusion on the issue. Let's begin. What is race? To figure out how race applies to the ancient Egyptians, we have to figure out where race even comes from. The origin of the races Negroid, Caucasoid, and Mongoloid started in the 1780s, and it was meant to group vast swaths of people based on their appearance. What is extremely important to note is that this was done in a way to rank these races of people in order of superiority and to justify slavery and colonization of perceived lower races. This was also done at a time where they cannot analyze and compare human DNA. Once we were able to analyze DNA, they discovered there were only very minuscule differences genetic wise between human populations around the world. While there are differences, it would no way be enough to completely separate and rank people. This also came before a time when the scientific community agreed that all humans originally came from the same population group out of East or Southern Africa. However, as humans spread and advanced culturally, hundreds of different ethnicities developed, and if we group them by color, that would be the only thing they have in common except the continent their land falls on. A Sami person in northern Scandinavia is different in almost every way to a Spartan from Greece, except for the fact that their skin color is similar and they're both from Europe. The Yoruba people of Western Africa and the Tamil people of southern India have similar skin colors, but you wouldn't consider them the same. Grouping people based on their skin color might be the most inefficient and inaccurate way to do so. People in the ancient world would also have no concept of this or even ranking people by skin color or facial features. Ancient peoples in Rome, Greece, China, and Egypt would have separated themselves based on familial or tribal ties rather than skin color and physical appearance. What is important to note is that this is not to say ancient people thought everyone was equal. It was quite the opposite, and ancient people thought that their specific tribe or family was superior to others. They just would not have grouped it based on skin color or hair texture. So before we continue with Egyptian civilization, we should think to ourselves, should we even be attempting to categorize the Egyptians with a modern but still obsolete and debunked grouping of humans that was oppressive in nature? Well, today we will. Egyptian civilization. The oldest human remains found in Egypt are approximately 33,000 years old, and it is believed that humans were in Egypt for much longer, originally coming from East Africa. These people would have looked like East African populations that migrated from there as they were the first humans to settle in the region. However, the civilization we call Egypt today began around 3150 BC when King Narmer started the first dynasty and united Upper and Lower Egypt, and it ended in 30 BC when it was conquered by Augustus and the Romans, meaning that there is at least 30,000 years of history from the arrival of humans to Egypt to dynastic Egypt, and over 31 years of history that spans Egyptian civilization. A lot can happen in that time span, but we will focus on dynastic Egypt because we have more records of conquest and migration during that time. It's important to remember that since Egypt was a powerful empire and a major hub for trade, many people migrated and passed through the area, meaning that at any given time, several different ethnicities and nationalities would have been living and moving in and out of Egypt. As anyone could expect, people would intermingle, leading to babies being born of mixed ancestry, as well as people settling down and becoming Egyptian culturally, but not ethnically or genetically. Given the size of Egypt as well, the people in Lower Egypt and closer to the Mediterranean would have looked slightly different than people of Upper Egypt and deeper in the Sahara. During the span of dynastic Egypt, several foreign groups invaded Egypt, and therefore you can assume that they also mixed in with the local population. These invaders include the Nubians from the south, the Assyrians and the Persians from the east, and the Macedonians from the north. This meant pharaohs and nobles from the period of foreign invasion would have been foreign, having Nubian, Middle Eastern, or European DNA, but the mass majority of the common people would have still been ethnically Egyptian. Unfortunately, most of the common people were not intricately mummified as that was expensive and were instead placed in common graves in the desert. This means that we don't have many preserved bodies of the common people in earlier portions of Egyptian civilization, but what we do have is color pictures. So, what would the Egyptians look like? Well, thankfully, the Egyptians left us with a plethora of paintings and depictions of themselves in their temples and tombs. Next, I'm going to show several pictures of Egyptians, and we can discuss what you see. Hey guys, so just wanted to make some quick commentary while we looked at the pictures. I just wanted to first say that it's absolutely incredible how detailed these images are, and I also wanted to say that I was able to go to Egypt a couple years ago and see a lot of these pictures in person, and I recommend everyone go if they can, at least one time in their life, because it's truly life-changing to see these in real life and see them with your own eyes, because we've been looking at them since we were kids. And thirdly is, I think no matter what race you think the Egyptians were, I think we can all agree that at least the Egyptian women are absolutely beautifully depicted. So let's get back to the video, but I just wanted to make that quick commentary. Thanks. So looking at these pictures, I think we can all agree that there was a variety of different skin tones in ancient Egypt, ranging from tan skin to dark brown, meaning that there was a spectrum of what people looked like in ancient Egypt as they were a diverse society. Next, I'm going to show you how the Egyptians depicted their neighbors, as it should be quite clear from the jump that regardless of color, you could tell the difference between the Egyptians, the Nubians, and other Western Asiatic people called Amu by their features and their garments. The Egyptians made sure to depict themselves as distinct people from their neighbors, as they were a xenophobic people and did not always embrace foreigners. Hey guys, it's me again. So I just wanted to make two observations while we go through these images. So the first one is these are the Western Asiatic people or the Amu, and the two things that you'll notice is that their garments are different than what the Egyptians wore, and a lot of the men have beards. So the Egyptians never depicted themselves with beards and not usually depicted themselves with beards. So these are two main differences between them and the Western Asiatic Amu. And the next group we're going to look at are the Nubians. And you can tell the difference between the Nubians and the Egyptians by three ways, really. The Nubians tend to have darker skin in their depictions, their garments are also much different than the Egyptians, and their head shape is slightly different as well. So the Egyptians didn't really see themselves as Western Asiatic Amu or Nubian, they were distinct. Conclusion. So to conclude, what race were the ancient Egyptians? At the end of the day, you can't apply outdated racial terms to the ancient Egyptians. The Egyptians had no specific color. Ultimately, the ancient Egyptians were simply Egyptian. If you want to know what that means or what they would have looked like, look at the diverse artifacts and depictions they left behind. Thank you.